Okay, students, welcome back to our 13th lecture. Today, in our previous lecture, particularly the 12th lecture, we saw about Raspberry Pi, right? What is Raspberry Pi? How we can conclude Raspberry Pi in order to obtain some kinds of new projects, right? It's like different. It's different from Arduino, but same uh, phenomena, but it is different. Why I say different is we can have additional features, right? Like we can add our keyboard, mouse, our monitor, even we can connect that into a Wi-Fi network, right? That is why Raspberry Pi is a specialized computer, right? So we knew that from our 12th class, right? So in today's class, we are going to actually install Raspberry Pi and deal with those things, right? So let's get, we see these things, right? So what are the projects that we can make? We saw that because why we use Raspberry Pi. So basically, but in order to make these kinds of things, right? So these kinds of things, we can directly go for the Arduino, right? Because this is not complicated because we didn't connect any mouse or computer, keyboard or etc. It can be achieved by using Arduino itself, right? It is not necessary to use Raspberry Pi for this specific project, right? Because Raspberry Pi, we know that Raspberry Pi is costly more than Arduino, right? It may be 10,000 rupees, right? One Raspberry Pi may be 10,000 rupees, right? So, but if we are using some other components such as this robot, right? This robot has a camera with itself, right? So if we are going to work with camera, we can use Raspberry Pi, right? So that is the difference, right? So according to the complexity of the project, we have to select what is the controller that we are going to use, right? So we knew that, right? We saw that what is the Raspberry Pi, what are the pins, right? So here we can see that these are pins, right? So here we have similar to Arduino, we have pins, right? In Arduino, we have female pins, right? We may have holes in Arduino, right? Maybe you see that there are holes, right? But in Raspberry Pi, we have male headed pins, right? So we have to use female to male cable or female to female cable to connect these components, right? So that one is different, right? But here we have some pins, right? So, but in Arduino, we have exact pins indicated with Arduino, right? So, but in Raspberry Pi, we don't see any kinds of indications, right? So, how can you identify what are those pins? How can we identify what are these pins stands for, right? So I will explain it, right? So what we have to do is we have to, right, just simply go to, right? So if you are using a Raspberry Pi 3, that means third version of the Raspberry Pi, you have to simply go to, right, Raspberry Pi, Raspberry Pi 3, right? So you have to simply type Raspberry Pi 3 and pin out diagram or pins, right? Maybe the internet is slow. Maybe the internet is slow, right? I will explain it in a bit in another way, right? So another way I will definitely explain, right? Right. I will explain it a little bit later, right? So that may be suitable, right? In other components, right, we may have USB cables, right? USB pins, HDMI pins, etc. in order to connect the additional parts, right? So we know that this charger, right? This charger is used to power up Raspberry Pi, right? We have to have the charger always connected with power supply, right? If the charger is disconnected, that means if you disconnect the charger, then the Raspberry Pi will be turned off. That means uh, you are using your personal computer with the power supply of this one. I mean, this one is 5 voltage, right? If you disconnect the power supply, your computer will be turned off, right? For that, you have to restart your computer. In similarly, Raspberry Pi also will work like that, right? If you disconnect this adapter, then the Raspberry Pi will restart. It will be turned off. Then you have to restart it again, right? We can attach a micro SD card, right? This micro SD card is the hard drive, right? Is the hard drive for the Raspberry Pi, right? So we have to attach this micro SD card. So basically, it is simple, right? So what we have to do is we have to obtain this kind of SD card, maybe minimum 8 GB, right? Minimum 8 GB, like our hard disks, right? So we have to obtain the SD card with minimum of 8 GB, maybe 16 GB, right? So after you have obtained, you have to attach it to a card reader, right? So you know that what is card reader, right? So this one can be read by a reader that is called card reader, right? Card reader. That card reader can be attached to our computer, personal computer, PC, right? So that way we have connected this card to our PC, our laptop, right? After you have attached that one, we have to go to Raspberry Pi's website. Unfortunately, internet connection is slow and it is not loading today. So you have to go to this raspberrypi.org, right? So this is the website. You have to go to this website, right? On there, you may see that software, right? On there, you may see that software is written, right? On there, similarly, how we have downloaded the Arduino, similarly, we also have to download the Raspberry Pi operating system. It is not like a software, right? But it is an operating system, right? Like our Windows, macOS, Linux, Unix, like that. Raspberry Pi is an operating system software. You have to download it under the software section on the raspberrypi.org website, right? After you have downloaded it, you have to install it to your card reader. That means you have to install it to your this one SD card, right? After you have installed, now you have to attach the SD card to your Raspberry Pi, right? Then you have to connect it to a monitor. Your Raspberry Pi should be connected to a monitor, right? Maybe a touch screen display or monitor, whatever, right? So then you have to set up it, right? That is what we are going to see today, right? Installing and setting up Raspberry Pi, right? So this is the case, right? So it may look like beautiful if we use a beautiful case like this, right? This is the Raspberry Pi case. This is how we arrange the Raspberry Pi, right? Right. This is a little bit slow. Right. Right. Now you have installed your operating system to the SD card from your computer, and then you disconnect the SD card, and then you attach it to the Raspberry Pi. Right. After that, you have to attach the other auxiliary components. Right. Like we have to attach a computer, the keyboard, mouse, monitor, maybe an internet access cable. This one, this green color one, right? We call it as Ethernet port. This is Ethernet port. This is Ethernet cable, right? Through this, we can we can browse internet, right? So also we can connect the Raspberry Pi with the Wi-Fi network also. From our router, we can easily connect as our smartphones, right? Right. Right. This is how, after you have installed the SD card, after you have installed the operating system and you install it for the first time on the Raspberry Pi, right? This will be shown from your Raspberry Pi, right? This is the page, right? So simply you can select what is the thing you are going to install, right? So select the first one, this one, right? So it will operate, it will ask you what is the operating system you are going to install, right? This one may be complicated, right? So this one includes a lot of programming and other stuff. Maybe this one might be a DOS version, right? This one is a simple version. We can navigate by using graphical user interface, right? So that is very simple, right? After that, we have to click install, right? So so where we are here, right? So where we are, basically we are at using Raspberry Pi, right? So this Raspberry Pi is connected to a monitor, right? So this is the monitor, right? So we have a keyboard here, mouse here, and then a SD card attached here, right? Here we are here, right? So we are navigating with Raspberry Pi through the SD card. We are installing the system, right? So by using our mouse and keyboard, we are integrating this one. Right now, it will be installed, right? So the Raspberry Pi operating system will be installed after some time, right? So that is, so here you will see some boot messages, right? After it is installed, you will see these kinds of interface in your monitor. What monitor? The monitor which is connected to the Raspberry Pi, right? So on that you will see this surface. Right here, we have to set up, right? So we have to click this one, right? So then you have to select your language, what language you are going to use, what is the country and the time zone, right? After that, you have to set up a password for your operating system, Raspberry Pi operating system. You have to set up a password, right? After that, you have to select a Wi-Fi network, which Wi-Fi network you are using, right? Maybe if you are using your router, you have to select and connect your router, right? By clicking the password and other steps. Right? You have to connect your router with the Raspberry Pi for the first time of installation. Right? So after that, you have to click reboot. Right? Then the Raspberry Pi will reboot. Right? So after it is rebooted, these are the things it will look like. I have indicated as annotated. Right? So this one is wallpaper. So this is very similar to our computer. Right? Is it? I told you that this is a small computer. Raspberry Pi is a computer, right? So here it is the Windows Start, similar to Windows Start key. Here we have all our softwares, right? So maybe some games and applications to program, right? So this is the taskbar, and we have other components, right? We know these things. Right now we can browse internet. If you click the web browser, right? So we can browse uh, internet from our Raspberry Pi, right? So here we can also set up the desktop icons as well, right? So today I have a video for you to show, right, how to install the Raspberry Pi and other stuff, right? So you can, I have selected this video, right, because maybe in our country our students are not engaging with these things, right? That is a lack of that lack, right? So because most of the students are engaged with the phone, playing games and using the foreign items, foreign components, right? So we don't create anything. Our creativity has to be developed, right? So you can, here you can see most of the child or most of the children or the people, that means the students, are using these kinds of Raspberry Pi, Arduino programming. They create applications, right? They create websites, all kinds of stuff they create, but we use, right? We have to change this, and also we also have some kinds of creativities, right? So we have to develop the creativity and we have to invent some new things by using the technology, right? And we have to develop our country, right? So we have to contribute to develop our country, right? Right. That is why for you to inspire, I have selected this video, right? This video is explained by a child. That means maybe a kid.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, what is the problem?
Sir, we can't hear the video.
You can't hear?
We can't hear the video.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just a minute. Now, can you see this? Can you see this?
Sir, we can see but couldn't hear.
Okay, now you can hear.
Which operating system are we gonna use? Linux?
Can you hear?
Can
Yes, sir.
hear, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
right, that's great.
Windows? Which version of these? You know, I have no clue. Where are we gonna save all this information? It seems like there is no hard drive on this. I wanna save my information, bruh. Okay, guys, so we're gonna be installing the operating system in this micro SD card, which holds 16 GB / 16 gigabytes.
We know that this is the micro SD card.
Okay guys, so we're gonna be now downloading the operating system on this micro SD card. You can use this card reader. Make sure the yellow goes in.
This is the card reader, right? So maybe in Sri Lanka there are other card readers as well available in the market.
First. And then, if your card reader is having a blue shiny light, means it's working. Okay guys, so we're gonna be...
So this is the Raspberry Pi website, right? So we have in our computer, right? So here we are, you have to see where we have to achieve these things, right? You have to watch this carefully and you have to get an idea about how we can install these kinds of things, right? So after it will be fun, right? So in our laptop, we have to attach the SD card to our laptop by using a card reader. And on the laptop, we have to download the system. That means the Raspberry Pi operating
going
system.
to download Noobs. So
We have
first
to
things
download
first,
this
we gotta
Noobs
Noobs
operating
means
system.
new out of the box software. That is what it means. And now if we scroll down very quickly, and it says download ZIP. And
so there is a difference between the
Noobs means
two
new out
things,
of
right?
the box software. That is
So
what it
you
means.
may have
And now if we scroll
maybe
down very quickly, and it says
this one. This one is Noobs Lite. That means the 38 MB. This one is to 2331 MB. The difference is this one has only the operating system. This one has the software itself, right? So likewise, I told you that in our computer we use some kinds of applications and the other programs, games, right? So those kinds of things are readily available inbuilt with this.
Let's download ZIP.
It's better to download this.
Now let's click
Right.
on that. And then there's this little pop-up over here in the bottom corner. Okay guys, so noobs, why I'm using noobs? Because it's for beginners and it will make the operating system very easy for me to download. That's why we are using noobs. Okay guys, so now we're gonna go to SD card and then we go to format. And
Yeah,
then
of course we have to
we
format
go
this
to
one,
FAT default. Okay,
and we have to set it as FAT32.
we're gonna click
Right.
okay.
Then the SD card is totally formatted, right? Then we
And
have
then
to
we'll say format
install
complete.
the
And we press
move
OK
system to
again.
the SD card.
Noobs, as you can see, is compressed to ZIP. So now we have to extract the file.
Yeah, right? So we have to extract noobs, right? So this one is compressed format. We have to extract this one, and then we install it to the SD card.
And here we go. And that's it. Now we have to copy the extracted noobs file to our formatted SD card. And that's it. Now we are ready for installation. Okay guys, sorry for...
Right. Up to now, do you have any problem? So this is how we install, that means copy and paste the operating system to the SD card.
Added the SD card and we downloaded noobs on it. Now we need to put it...
Right. Now our laptop's work is finished. Right. Now we have to obtain the SD card, right? And then we have to attach it to the
Raspberry Pi. So in this tiny slot over here. So make sure the red comes here and it goes like that. And boom, that's it. Now we put the SD card in. Now let's put the wires, HDMI, and the charger. Okay guys, now we need to put the HDMI. So here is this pretty big slot.
You know that HDMI cable is used to connect the monitors, right? So on the HDMI cable, you can connect it.
We're gonna put the HDMI in that. So here is our HDMI, and now let's slowly but surely put it just so it won't rip. And here we put the HDMI. Now let's go put the mouse. So here's the mouse wire, and then here this, and yeah. Now let's put the power source on. So here is the power source, and now we're gonna put it in this tiny slot. So let's slowly but surely do that as well. And done. Now since we have connected all three things, all we need to do is power it on. So if we quickly just go and power it on.
Right. You can see that the LED is turned on, right?
It's supposed to make.
Right. Sometimes after the LED is turned on, you may see the monitor will have the access, right? So monitor will pop up, right? So if you don't have the pop-up from the monitor by using your Raspberry Pi, right? You have to go and check your HDMI cable, right? So maybe the monitor, right, on the back side of the monitor, it may have different kinds of HDMI ports, right? So you have to connect one by one, and then you have to see what is the particular HDMI port the monitor can support, right?
Red bright light.
Right.
Okay, guys.
Right. It's pop up, right? It is popped up, right? So if you don't see this display, that means your monitor stays as a black screen. You have to do that additional task, right? You have to remove you have to remove this HDMI cable from the monitor, and you have to connect it to another HDMI port if it is, right? So if you don't have, just adjust the cable, right? So it may be problems in your cable or in your monitor. You should see this kind of display.
So now we just powered it on and it says resizing fat partition. And now we have to wait. Okay guys, so now we have two choices, of course, Raspbian and the other one. So of course we're picking Raspbian.
So I told you earlier, you have to pick this one, right? So this is the graphical user interface. It will be more easy to navigate.
Let's quickly do this. And after we pick Raspbian, it says an install pop-up will come out, and then we click on it, then we say yes and done. And then we wait again. Guys, we picked Raspbian, but why did we pick Raspbian? Let's read a little about it. Raspbian. Raspbian is the Foundation's official supported operating system. You can install it with noobs or download the image below and follow our installation guide. Raspbian comes pre-installed with plenty of software for education programming and general use. It has Python, Scratch, SonicPy, Java, and more. That's why we picked Raspbian, of course. Okay guys, Raspbian is a flavor of Linux that got cooked from Debian. So they took Raspberry and Debian and combined it together to make Raspbian. Let's close our laptop and let's use our new computer. Bye bye laptop. Okay guys, I'm going to be putting all the links down below in the description for Raspbian and all the links that you need to know to install. OS installed successfully. Then we press OK. And now it's going to restart.
Right.
Wow, that looks great.
This is the interface, right? This is the noob's interface, right? After you have installed Raspberry Pi system, that means Raspbian operating system, you will see this interface, right?
Did I go there?
So one problem here, right? You should ensure that you don't disconnect the power supply, right? That means the charger. Right? If you disconnect the charger, this one will be turned off, right? So you have to make sure that it is always turned on while you are working. So how can you make moving parts by using Raspberry Pi? Can anyone tell it to me? How can you make moving parts such as a robot, that means a car robot? How can you make the Raspberry Pi movable with the charger attached to the power supply? How can you make this? Can anyone tell me? Yeah. Can anyone tell me how can you make movable parts? Yeah, using batteries, right? We have to use batteries, right? 5-voltage battery has to be connected to the this one. Maybe you can use also the power banks. The power banks are used to charge our mobile phone. Those kinds of power banks can also be used to charge the Raspberry Pi. Right.
Let's click OK, then next. Okay guys, now it's time
So this is the language selection panel.
to the country, language, time zone. I'm just gonna keep it use English language, I suppose, and then next. So I'm gonna keep it as the default
You have to set up your new password for your Raspberry Pi.
password, which is Raspberry. So we have to, I'm gonna keep it default, and I'm just gonna press next. Searching for networks, please wait. So I'm gonna skip because I can connect to my Wi-Fi later.
So you have to connect Wi-Fi, right? So for the first time,
this is an updating software, so I'm gonna skip it, and we're gonna press on restart. So now it's completely done. After a few clicks, we have officially installed Raspbian on our Raspberry computer. Okay guys, so let's see if this computer actually did something good for us.
Right. Now it is simple, right? So we have to install the Raspberry Pi. Now it is simple. You can click this one and open the software.
We click on this, then we go to programming.
We have these kinds of programming softwares, right? So you know that we have Java, Python, Scratch, and now the other stuffs, right? But I want you to prefer these softwares. Why? Because we learned these things in our Tinkercad software. We learned these things, right? These are visual programming components. Visual programming, right? So these are other things need some kinds of advanced programming studies, right? So you have to learn programming, right? So, but this one, you can simply make projects by using Scratch, right? So this Scratch software is also available in the PC, right? This software is also available in the laptop also, right? So I will explain it in a bit.
All of these. We see Blue Java, IDE, we see Genie, Greenfoot, Mathematica, MU, Node Red, Scratch 1, Scratch 2, Scratch, and Scratch 3, which we're going to be using, and Sense Hat Emulator, Thami Python IDE, and Wolfram. Or master SD card and download Noobs on it. With a few clicks, you officially have your own Raspbian installed. And now your computer is ready. So let's see what we're going to do now.
He's going to do a project, right? I think he's going to do a traffic light system, right? You may ask a question. We can simply make a traffic light system by using Arduino, right? Of course, you can make. Of course, you can make this simple project by using Arduino, right? But here it is not the case to achieve the traffic light system, right? It is not achieving the traffic light system. It is learning the Raspberry Pi system, right? That is why I'm going to explain this one, right? So this simple thing, right? If you can turn on this LED, that means you can turn on whatever. That means you can turn on your motors, right? So maybe you can connect in1, in2, in3, in4 pins to turn on your motor controller, right? Maybe you can use servo motors or stepper motors as well, right? Right. So this is same as the connection, right? So here this is grounded, right? So this line is grounded, right? So on the positive terminal, he has attached a resistor, and then the resistor, this one is attached to by using a male to female cable to the Raspberry Pi, right? Similarly, the green bulb and yellow and red bulbs are attached like this one, right? You know how to attach these things, right? You may have the problems with these things, like this part, right? This part we learned in Arduino, right? Those are simple things, right? You know these things very well, but you may face the problem in this area, right? I will explain, right? Because of my internet is not working, I will explain from his video, right? Right. You can see what may be the program, right? So this is the demonstration of his project. You can see what may be the program. Right? So that is what you have to think, right? Rather than enjoying the lights are blinking, you have to think what may be the program, how he has achieved these things, right? You have to think, right? We have to think and create creative products, right? Creative projects and inventions.
Hello guys, did you see my crazy traffic light? So red is to stop, yellow is to get ready, and green is to go. Of course, it's only 2 seconds, but in a real traffic light, it's not 2 seconds. This is just a demo version of it. So, and do you guys want to see how I programmed it from scratch to do it on here? Well, stay tuned. But before we start, I want to show you guys something. Okay guys, so first of all, I want to
Right. This is the one I wanted to show you, right? So what we have to do is we have to go to Raspberry Pi pins, right? So, but we have to type Raspberry Pi if you are using Raspberry Pi 3.0 version, right? Raspberry Pi 0.3, you have to type Raspberry Pi 3.0 pin diagram, right? So pins, right? After you have clicked that one, search that one, you may have this image, right? You have to download this image, and you have to download this image, and you can obtain a print, right? So on the print, you can attach the printed paper on it also for you to refer. Otherwise, you can keep it on other side, right? So here I'm going to explain. This is the pins, right? So this one, that means this number one pin, right? So here it has numbered as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like likewise. So this first pin, this particular first pin is 3.3 voltage, right? So this pin is 5 voltage, right? So what did this mean? Input or output? Can anyone tell me 3.3? It is input or output?
The input.
No, it's not input, it's output. Because we can obtain 3.3 voltage from that pin, right? That means if you obtain a wire, let's say it's an example, right? You obtain a wire from this one and connect it to a LED bulb, right? So what will happen? Ground it, right? Maybe you have to ground it. Ground means the ninth pin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one. You have to ground it, right? What will happen? The LED bulb will always turn on. That means it will provide 3.3 voltage to this LED bulb, and the LED bulb will be turned on for always, right? So we have learned 3.3 voltage and the ground, right? How it works, right? On other pins, right? That means these pins, GPIO pins, right? These are pins that stands for controlling the LED bulb, right? So that means blinking the LED bulb, right? So if we disconnect this wire, right? I'm going to disconnect this one, erase this one, right? And instead of that, I'm going to connect from the third pin, right? GPIO pin, this pin, right? And obtain it to the LED bulb. So what will happen? After you have done this wiring diagram, what will happen? Can anyone tell me? Quickly. Nothing will happen. Why? We have connected these things accordingly, right? But we didn't program, right? If you only program this to work, then only it will work, right? So what we have to do is we have to program. That means the third pin should be turned on for 3 seconds, and it should be turned off for 2 seconds, and turn on for 3 seconds. Likewise, we have to program it, right, for the third pin, right? Third pin, that means the third pin, but it is GPIO2, right? So that is what we have to be aware about. It is not the third, of course, it is the third pin, but the pin's defined name is GPIO2, right? So likewise, that is how it works, right? So you probably you get an idea about overall idea about these pins, right? So these are the pins. Here we don't see any PWM pins, digital analog pins. Why? All the pins can be used whatever we want. Maybe it may be an analog pin, digital pin, whatever the pin, but it may be programmed, right? According to our requirement, we can program it.
You to
That is the difference between Arduino and this one, right?
GPIO. GPIO stands for General Purpose Input Output. That is what GPIO stands for. Guys, GPIO is the most
It may be used as these pins, right? May be used as input or may be used as output, right? Whatever the thing, we have to program it. We have to define this is an input, and we have to set it like that.
important
Then
parts
we have to program.
in Raspberry Pi. And
But programming, don't worry, right? That is very simple also.
these are the
I will explain it in a bit.
pins that we are going to be using to make our project. These pins. Okay, guys, so I think this picture is easier for me and for you. So we're only going to be using 4 pins, which 3 of them are 25, 8, and 7.
So probably he used 25th pin, 8th pin, and 7th pin for his project, right? So these red color pins are 5 voltages, and this orange color, right? Orange color pin is for 3V3. That means 3.3 voltage. These pins, yellow pins are GPIO pins, and the black pins are grounds.
And the last pin is going to be ground. Any black dot is ground, of course.
Don't worry about these 2 pins, right? So these are advanced use only, right? That means deleting the programs and all the things, right? That means electrically erasable, programmable, read-only memory, right? That is what it is. In order to reset the Raspberry Pi or the program, that means operating system, we have to use these 2 pins, right? So don't worry about these 2 things. These are advanced things. Maybe you will learn these things
So
in future.
those are the 4 pins that we're going to be using. Okay, guys, so now I'm going to be showing you how to open Scratch. So of course, you take your mouse, you click on this little raspberry thing, click on it. Then it says programming, the first one. You move without going out, and then you have 3 scratches in front of you. Scratch 1, 2, and 3. We're going to be using 3, the newest and latest model of it.
Right. He is using Scratch software. Right. Scratch is similar to what we have done in our Tinkercad software. Right. So this is it works. Right. So we have these kinds of components. We are very familiar with these things. Right. So we are familiar with these things. You can just simply go to Tinkercad and practice these things. And then after in future, you may obtain a Raspberry Pi and practice these things.
You guys can see
so
on
you
the
can, but you can directly program it, right? In Arduino, you have to convert this code into a C++ code, right? C code. That means the text code, and you have to upload it to the Arduino in Arduino, right? But in here, in Raspberry Pi, you can simply work with this program and directly upload it, right? So, but in here we have this character, right? This cat character. We can animate this character. That is what it is built for, right? In order to animate this character, animate and make animations that, right? But if we want to make something that can be related to the Raspberry Pi, we have to add Raspberry Pi programs, right?
laptop.
But we don't see any Raspberry Pi programs here,
There is
right? So what we have to do,
no
we have to click this one. So
GPIO Raspberry. Why is that? Because we didn't add the extension. And now
that is an extension.
I'm going to show you how to add an extension of GPIO Raspberry. So now there is this little blue thing. So you click on it. Okay, guys.
So then you have to add the Raspberry Pi extension.
Now after it loads in, we have
This one.
2 raspberries. There's this one, Raspberry Pi GPIO.
GPIO pins.
We're going to be clicking on this one. So after we click on it,
now you can see that this one, right? That means the Raspberry Pi GPIO pins, right? So in similar to Arduino program that we have learned in our Tinkercad software, right? So we can play with these things, right? So if you see these things, right? So you can simply drag and drop these things and play around with these things, right? So you can simply select what pin. That means if you have connected the 25th pin that should be high, you can make it, right? That means the 25th pin will be given power, right? So that in that way you can turn on LED bulbs and blink it.
tab is extincted, this one. So now I'm going to be showing you guys how to do the program, of course. Now I save it somewhere here. Here. Yeah, here.
You have to
And
save
then
this program.
back here. Yeah, here. Oh guys, as you guys can see, it officially loaded. And now we need to make it a bit bigger somehow. Okay guys, so this is the
So this is his program, right? So we know that when the flag is clicked, that means start, right? So forever, right? Forever means it will run the program forever, right? So we have to set GPIO 25th pin to output high, right? That means the 25th pin, GPIO 25th pin is an output that should be high, right? And then 8th pin, at this also on output, that should be low. And this one is also low, 7th pin, right? This program has to run for 3 seconds. That is what we have inserted, wait 3 seconds, right? It will wait for 3 seconds, right? Then for the traffic light system, he has programmed, right? So set 7th pin to high, 25th pin to low, right? That means these two, the 25th pin will be turned off in off state, but the 7th pin, these are already off state, so we don't have to worry, right? But we have to turn on the 7th pin, right? So we have to, that means the yellow color LED, right? So we can turn on here, right? So then we have to turn off this one, right? So then we have to turn off this one. So that is why the 7th pin is low and then 8th pin is high. Right? Then it should, this code will wait for 3 seconds. After that, it will happen. After it is happened, it will come this way and run. That means forever it will be running. This loop will be running forever. That is the code. We knew these things, right? From the Tinkercad software, we knew these things.
software that we used to make the traffic light.
So we will
it is copied
going to
times
explain
more. I would like to say thanks to my computer team. The part is that we
right. That is all about installing the Raspberry Pi and configuring it and dealing with those components and all the other stuffs. Right? So in the meantime, if you have any problem, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will have another. Right. So I have a software, Scratch software in my computer as well. Right. So you have to go to your web browser and type Scratch, right? Scratch 3 and free download. This is a free downloadable software, right? So you have to download this from your laptop, right? By installing this software, you can practice and learn coding, right? So I have already installed Scratch software, and I'm going to open this one, right? Scratch 3, right? So if you open, it will look like this one in my computer. In my computer, I can practice, right? So here we have motion. That means this character will be animated, right? So this character can be animated. That means move 10 steps means we have to set it. And that means we can change his looks, right? So it can say hello, right, and all the things, and also it can play sounds, right? So these sounds can be, that means this one is a play meow song, right? So if you run this one, you can see that. Yeah, one person asked me that how to install Scratch, right? So I will explain it to you. Right. So you have to open up your browser. It is very simple. Just because my internet connection is not powerful to show that. That is why I omitted. Right. So you have to type Scratch for PC. This one, scratch.mit.edu. This software is developed by MIT students. Very handy too. But in your PC, you will have problem. You will have a problem. You can't simulate the Raspberry Pi from your computer because we don't see the Raspberry Pi here, right? So we don't see Raspberry Pi as shown in the Raspberry Pi operating system, right? In Raspberry Pi operating system, we click this one, this extension panel, and we added the Raspberry Pi GPIO pins, right? But in your PC, or in your laptop, if you click this one, you don't see the Raspberry Pi GPIO pins. That is the problem, right? If you click here, nowhere it is seen, right? We can't see the Raspberry Pi GPIO pins, right? So we can't simulate Raspberry Pi using this Scratch software, right? In order to simulate the system, we have to have the original Raspberry Pi, and then we have to go with that, right? That is the problem, right? So in the meantime, I can explain. So here we have events, right? When the when the flag is clicked, move 10 steps, right? So we can, so you see that the sound is here when this one is pressed, right? Instead of that, we can remove this one, right? So we can delete this one, right? And we can set this one, right? So if space key is pressed, it will move 10 steps forward, right? And it will play a sound, meow sound, right? So we can record sounds, our own sounds, and upload it to this one also, right? So you can play around with these things, right? So I'm not going to do this one. Right. So if I press space key from my keyboard, it will operate. Right. Now this is how it will work, right? So you can just practice these things, right? If you want, we will have a session on the software, right? So how we can navigate these things, right? So we will install that one first, right? So this is the page. We have to select your operating system, which one you are using, maybe Windows, Mac OS, Chrome OS, right? So then you can click direct download, right? So don't go this one, just click direct download, right? So it will appear this one, and then you can go to the desktop and save this. So it is 192 MB, right? After it is downloaded, you can just click install and click next and install it. That is very simple, right? Right. Hope you got an idea about that one. So in the meantime, do you have any problem? You can just ask me about what we have learned so far. So we have these things, right? So if functions, repeat functions, similar to what we have learned in our Tinkercad software, right? So sensing is how the character will be animated according to what is the sensor, right? So maybe mouse pointer, maybe we can edit our keys, right? So it is like playing games, right? We can create games as well by using this one. Maybe the small games we can create, right? That is very simple. So if you have any problem, you can just ask me. It's downloading. So Raspberry Pi 3 pins. I think the Raspberry Pi is not working only. So my display is turned off, unfortunately. So we will wind up the class today. Unfortunately, my display is turned off. What, I don't know what happened. Right? I will upload the video if it is achieved.